why do you guys constantly come in here? Oh my God. It's like a fetish with you guys. There's no better rug to destroy than that one. Okay. Let's see. All right, let's see what's happening here. I'm not sure this is going to work. Yeah, I think it's not going to work. All right. We're going to go to plan B here, David. I'm not sure this is going to work. All right. There we go. Well, it looks like, David, looks like we've got the same problem we had last time.
Different people.
Different people, but the same problem. I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, why this is happening, but I even sent out a reminder email. So I don't know. Let me call Connie and Phyllis.
Okay.
That's probably the way to do it. I'll call people. Occurs to me, I'll just call them. Hello, Connie. It's Rabbi Jim. Are you going to be joining us tonight? Good. All right. So you'll join us in a second. It's only David and me at this point. We're only two of us. So we're. Oh. Yes. You're on the telephone. Oh. Oh, you're. Oh, wait. Oh, you're on the screen? Oh, hold on a second. That is very strange. Okay. I'll be right. If you're on. No. I see that there's only 3 participants. So wait a second. But which Zoom room are you in? Are you in Did you go to Rabbi Jim? How did you get onto the? Okay, Gail's list is wrong. It's right. For some reason, the list. So if you could tell everybody to get off and to go on to Rabbi Jim.
Am I in the wrong place, Rabbi Jim?
So Jeannie and David are in the right place. There was a problem with the weekly schedule this week.
Oh, my goodness.
So half of the people that wanted to be at the Thanksgiving service today ended up in someone else's Zoom room. And
Oh, that's embarrassing.
yes, so I can only hear and see you through the telephone, not through the computer. So if you're on the computer, then you can go out and then push join and then scroll down until you see, or just type in Rabbi Jim, and that's the whole thing. Then you're done. And then if she's on a telephone, all she needs to do is go to who is it, Phyllis? Okay, so best is to go to morning service this week. So on Saturday morning, and the proper number is there. Awesome, thank you. Oh, that's crazy. That is crazy. All right, but I think when we have Phyllis and Connie, and I don't know if Dodie is back from the hospital, I'm going to call her.
Yeah, I don't think she's back. I haven't heard. If you
Uh,
call her, please say hello for me.
yeah, let me see. I don't know if she has. Does Connie? Do you remember? You know if Dodie has a cell phone, or does she use her? I think she has a cell phone.
I don't know. I don't even see you on the Monday, last week's Monday. You're not even here.
It's so crazy. I keep on trying to convince Laura to switch to Google Docs so that I can look over the stuff before it goes out, because I only get it after it goes out, and then it's too late.
Yeah. I don't see it.
So I apologize for the delay. This is
Oh, so I don't see you here at all. Are you on the program at all?
I don't know.
No, I don't see you here at all.
Assume.
Rabbi Jim, I don't see you at all.
That is so crazy.
I just know to go. I open the Zoom app. I don't go on I don't go to my email.
Right. I mean, that is actually by far the most efficient way of doing it. You just, you know, it's my program. You
said it's the same all the time, so it's still there. It's also better sound quality, they say.
Hi, I'm looking for a Dolores Catlett, please. Catlett. I'm her rabbi. Thank you. Hello, Dodie. It's Rabbi Jim.
Hi, Dodie.
Jeannie says hi, and David says hi. How are you doing? Oh. Oh. Oh my my gosh. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear it. Yeah, right.
Hello, anybody?
Hi, Phyllis. The rabbi,
Yeah,
Rabbi Jim is speaking to Dodie on the telephone.
I'm
This is really crazy.
I'm going to talk to Dodie just 1 second and see if she
All
wants
right.
to join us.
I
Okay.
understand. I understand. The rabbi is speaking to Dodie on the telephone. You know,
Got it. Got it.
It doesn't sound good. So he's put us on mute, Phyllis,
Okay.
so we don't hear because he's having a confidential conversation with her.
Okay. But you can hear me
Yes, I can hear you.
and I can hear you.
You can hear me, and David, you can hear us.
Yes. They put the wrong numbers on the Monday.
So I understand. I'm shocked. The only reason I got here is because the rabbi said, well, you can't do this, but I don't depend on Laura. I just go to the Zoom app. I open it up.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
But since I'm not using any app.
Right. You can't do that.
Yeah.
But do you call the same number every time to get in?
Well, I did until today when I called a different number because a different number was listed.
Oh, I see. That is a problem, I guess.
I don't know who makes up these sheets.
Yeah.
But there are a few errors.
Well, Phyllis, the person who makes the sheet up is in the witness protection program.
Yes, quite necessary. Oh dear.
So, what are we to make of King David, Phyllis?
I don't know, but I don't think he had the troubles we do.
Well, he had different troubles.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Well, I guess he lived a long life.
Yeah, supposedly.
He had a couple of people trying to get him. Saul and his sons, Adonijah and Absalom. So that's tough.
Yeah, and not only that, just the very fact of his remembering his sons' names is amazing.
And yeah, because he had so many too.
Yeah, and they all had crazy names, you know.
They were crazy names, and he had a lot of them. I know it.
Yeah.
So good for him. He remembered till the end.
Yeah, you'd think he'd have called one of them at least John.
Yeah, or Popek. Like in my family, everyone's Popek.
Yes.
That's what I call my cat.
Oh, really? Does she answer to that name?
Sort of.
Sort of. Okay.
Yeah. She's very
well.
affectionate. She knows her real name, which is Lila, which means night, you know, in Hebrew.
Yeah, I know it does. Yeah.
Because she's black.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I met a black dog at the veterinarian whose name was Lila.
Ah.
It's also Arabic for night.
Well, that doesn't surprise me, but I didn't know that.
Yeah. I saw it in the dictionary.
Yeah. Okay, so are we all settled now, or is this has not?
No, if the rabbi is still on the phone.
Oh, I guess.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can't hear me. Connie, I just need to get Connie on the call.
Okay.
Dodie is not feeling up to it. Hello.
Okay.
She home?
I sent you through email an invitation to our session. I am. If you go to your email, you will find a link that you can use to join us. Oh, how weird. No, but you can hear. Okay, that's fine. You can hear me, but you can only hear me because are you on YouTube? All right, but so should I hang up the phone? I don't think you're going to hear us. Really? Well, who else is on the phone? Who else is on the call?
I'm on the phone.
Phyllis is on the phone.
That's it? This
Yeah.
is so mysterious, Connie.
Can you hear
No,
me?
I-
I'm on the
No,
phone.
I'm not giving a lecture. You must be watching an old one.
But I think that Connie's in the wrong meeting.
Is that my voice? Is that my voice I'm hearing in the background?
Is this-
Oh, then you've got a different, we're not talking about Joshua today. That's an old one. I don't know where you're getting that one from. All right, Connie, so go to your email, and click the invitation I just sent you. All right. All right, we'll talk soon. Oh my gosh. All right. You guys all heard that. Okay. So I apologize. This has been the weirdest day vis-a-vis Zoom with everybody. So, but in any case, Dodie, Dodie wants everyone to know that she's hanging in there, and she is she says hi to everybody.
Where is she? Is she at home or the hospital?
Say it again, Jeannie.
Is she at home or in the hospital?
She's still at the hospital.
Oh,
Oh, she's in the hospital.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Boy. All right. So we're just going to wait a few more moments. Hopefully Connie will join us, and then we will finally have this final session.
Well, it's not the final session, is it?
right, no.
It's a penultimate session.
Yes.
It's
Okay.
a final session about the actual text of the David story. And next week we will.
Hey, Connie, she made it.
Connie's here.
Great.
Frozen, but she's here.
Hello, Connie. I made it too.
Oh my
She
God.
has to thaw. Now she's thawing out.
This is really just, this is the craziest of crazies. All right, so we finally made it. All right, we're good. All right. Anyway, so this, as I was just saying, Connie, this is our last session about the actual story of David. We will, I think we will probably come back to the Book of Kings when we finish our consideration of the Book of Judges. We will skip the Book of Samuel because we have, this group has already done that, and we'll come back to the Book of Kings and the reign of Solomon. The Book of Kings is, according to the commentary I was reading today, falls into three categories. The first one has to do with the reign of Solomon and
The reign of what?
the reign of Solomon and the building of the temple. And then the rest of it has to do with all the kings that come after Solomon, all of whom eventually doom first Israel, right? At first there's the split between Judah and Israel. And then the kingdom of Israel disappears, destroyed by the Assyrians. And then a couple of generations later, Judah, right, and Jerusalem is destroyed, and the Israelites go into exile in Babylon.
And by Israelites, you mean the people of Judah,
Yes, the people of Judah, right? Exactly.
but you call them Israelites?
I did. I shouldn't have. They're Judahites. They're
Oh, but people don't call them. Do people call them Judahites?
Not really. I think they call them at this point. I think at this point we can call them Jews. Although that's a really interesting question. It seems too early to call them Jews. So Judahites, I guess, is probably the right thing. Although I still think of them as Israelites. But yeah, they're Judahites technically.
And at one point, they talk about Israelites. The people that we're talking about, they're Israelites or Hebrews.
Yeah, where does Hebrew come in?
But Hebrew comes from.
That's Abraham crossing over the river.
Exactly.
Way back when.
The root Hebrew comes from Abraham, and that's really
Oh,
it's not really used um, as a national designation as far as I understand.
But you
Um,
know, in Italian, there Jews are Ebrei.
right, 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 and they are that also in Russian. In Russian,
oh,
Jews are Yevrei, which is better than the Polish, where
What is it in Polish?
Žid, which is not a great. It's
well, that's interesting, because the Hebrew is retained in the designation for the language,
yes,
and Yid is the designation of Yiddish language.
Yeah. So when you say it's not good, it's maybe taken on a bad connotation, but
Yeah,
it's not
but it really
inherently
comes
bad.
from the language they spoke.
Yeah.
in Poland, there's no distinction between the sort of neutral term for Jew and the pejorative term for Jew.
Oh,
Right, right.
Very complicated. Because in Russian, there is that distinction between the word Žid, which is not a nice word in Russian, and
Uh-huh.
which is the neutral word.
Interesting.
Is it the equivalent of the N word in English?
Yeah. In Russian, it is. You don't want to call anyone that in Russian. But I was startled the first time I went to an ultra Orthodox wedding, and this delightfully playful man came up and said, "All of my Yidden, all of my Yidden," and I was like, "What are you
Oh,
talking about?" And then I realized that I was included. It was kind of strange. So,
interesting.
yeah. Because in Yiddish, what is a Jew? A Jew is a Yid. I mean, that's a neutral term.
Yeah, it's not a pejorative term, no.
Not at
Or
all.
maybe it's a little bit like the N word used
Right.
by people in the Black community, maybe.
Yeah, right. So
Maybe, I don't know.
it's right, exactly. So it's
And that also is a designation of color originally comes from just
right. It's right. Right. So anyway, let's get to our topic. Very excited to hit this. So if you have the book of if you have Alter's book, we're on page 363. Does anyone need the text up on the screen? David, do you need the text on the
I
screen?
have King James.
Perfect.
I can follow with that, I think.
Great. All right. So David well, actually, no, I will put it on the screen. You know why? Because it's just helpful to have on the screen.
Okay.
It's helpful to have the Hebrew on the screen. So we'll just do that. Kings is the first time I've pushed Kings in a long time. Okay. All right, great. All right. So I think there's few enough of us that we can just sort of speak up if you have a question. All right. So so this is very, very interesting, right? That we had this kind of we had this series of epilogues, if you will recall, in the book of Samuel, right? Things that really were not continuations of the story, but just sort of these little tack-on things
Right.
that needed to, obviously they were traditions that were important enough for the redactor to include them in the Bible, even though they obviously do not sort of move the story forward in any particular way. They address other issues, but they don't move the story forward. So here, the first two chapters of Kings really is where we get the continuation and really, in a sense, the conclusion of the David story. And the reason I think that it's included in the book of Kings, right, is that as with every story about a king, right, it's always, the king is dead, long live the king, right? So the story of who becomes the next king is always intermeshed with who is so the king's death always means that there needs to be a conversation about who's the next king going to be. Now remember, right, that David took over the throne not from his father, right, but from Saul. And so there's no necessary understanding that there would be that David's oldest son, which perhaps was Absalom, maybe was not. That there's no assumption that the oldest son would be the one who is going to inherit the throne. So so there is, as we know, right, going to be a sort of a struggle about who is going to take over. And I think this is one of the most interesting things about this story, right, is that there doesn't seem to be, there's all kinds of uncertainty about who is going to be. So let's look at this. So King David was old and stricken in years, and they covered him with clothes, but he could get no heat. Wherefore his servants said unto him, let there be sought for my lord the king a young virgin, and let her stand before the king and be a companion unto him, and let her lie in thy bosom, that my lord the king may get heat. And so they sought a fair damsel throughout all the borders of Israel, and found Abishag the Shunammite, and brought her to the king. And the damsel was very fair, and she became a companion to the king. Vatahi lamelech sochenet.
Where's the picture?
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, it's Betsy trying to log in.
Oh, there we go. Oh, I didn't. Great, you're here. Thank you, Betsy.
Sorry, I had technological issues.
Not a problem. Not a problem. You're here, which is what matters. Okay. Great.
Okay.
So we're just reading the beginning of this. It took us a while to get started because we had our own technical issues. All right.
Okay.
All right. So, but the king knew her not, right? So, it says, right. So, I'm just going to circle this, right? V'hana'ara yafa ad me'od, right? V'tehi lamelech sochenet, right? V'shartehu, right? So she was a companion or a kind of a nurse to him, right? Someone, a protector, right? And someone who took care of him, ministered to him.
Tarshet? Is that?
Shara. It's actually Shara, yeah, Shara, Shartehu. So she took care of him, right? V'hamelech lo yada'a, right? Which is very interesting, right? That the king did not know, right? And obviously this is the old King James, right? They were not intimate with one another.
Excuse me, is the word know used in both the sense of knowledge and of sexual congress?
Absolutely, right? So the same word.
So how do you know which to use then?
Say it again.
How do you know which is appropriate for the situation?
Only by context, right? So in the case of, and it's not the same, right? That word is not used in Hebrew in the sense of was acquainted with. So if I were to say, if you were to say about a person, I know her, right? If you said ani yodea ota, right? You are suggesting that you've probably committed a TMI, right? A too much information, right? Because probably people don't really want to know that. So what you say is ani makir ota, right? I am acquainted with.
Uh-huh.
And so knowing, if it's knowing a person, it tends to be about sexual intimacy. And if it's knowing a thing, right, then it tends to be about the kind of knowing, I know.
Okay.
Right? I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thanks. Okay.
Okay, so here, right, and it's very interesting. I hadn't really thought of this until today when I was reading a commentary, but the question that came up is, well, it's fine, right? It's it certainly makes sense, right, that the king being old might already be past the point of wanting that kind of sexual intimacy. But the question is, why wouldn't why wouldn't one of his existing wives or concubines fulfill this service? Why do they need to go and find somebody new?
Well, didn't one of his sons have sex with his concubines?
Yes, but I mean, presumably David had more than the 10 concubines that.
Ah.
Yeah. So, for instance.
Where did he go?
You disappeared.
Yeah.
You went away.
There's no indication that Bathsheba, for instance, slept with Avshalom, right? Although I guess it's possible. And it's also reasonably clear, I think, that everyone that Avshalom slept with was actually a concubine and not a wife.
Ah.
Probably David had wives that he could have called on to keep him warm, right? So there is this sort of interesting question: why does he need, someone new? So I don't really have a great answer. I don't think the answer that I'll tell you the answer that was in this commentary that I read, which basically said that this actually came from a medieval commentator who said that his servants were worried that if he did have sex with someone, and he would likely have sex with one of his wives, that might prove too much for him and he would die.
Huh.
I'm not convinced by that argument, but it certainly, I guess it's plausible.
Rabbi?
Yes.
This commentary that talks about the fact that it's just reflective of his waning in all his faculties.
Yes.
In his mind and his emotion, and it's just kind of a foretelling that he's going to really deteriorate now.
That's really interesting because I think that both, I don't recall the Alter commentary because I've read it like 3 weeks ago, but the commentary that I read today was emphasizing that even though he's physically very feeble, right, he is not mentally feeble, right?
That's the opposite.
He's quite sharp, right, and he's very shrewd, and that is really interesting that the Sonsino focuses on his superannuation. That's fascinating.
Is it possible the wives didn't want to sleep with him?
Right. I mean, I think right. So Phyllis, that might make more sense that the wives might be like, give me one more child. Let's have sex one more time, because then maybe I will be the mother of the final child of the king. So that is definitely possible.
Huh.
Maybe they didn't want to play nursemaid.
Or right.
They didn't
So
want to
that's
minister to
another
Yeah.
option. I
Yeah.
love that option.
So they bring in some fresh, young, powerless woman. And what's a Shunem? What's her? She's a what? A Shunem.
So actually, that is really interesting.
Who
So
are they?
reflect for a second,
Whatever.
Jeannie, on what you said, right? Which is that it's quite possible, right, that these mature women are past the time that they really want to lie in a bed with their husband, right? And they have other things to do,
But I mean, he's
So-
sick and he needs a nurse. He needs nursing.
Yeah, but I think it was more that they just didn't want to play nursemaid.
They don't want to be a nurse. They don't want to empty the bedpan. Frank.
Yeah.
There we go. Right. Okay. So now this makes sense. If we think about Abishag not as a nubile young woman who is keeping him warm, but instead we're thinking about her as a
As a servant, really.
no, not even as a servant, but as a PCA. I mean, as a personal care.
Yeah.
I mean, someone,
Right. Okay.
someone whose job it is
Yeah.
to take care of a person when they have real trouble taking care of themselves. I think that really makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's a nice way of putting it too.
That's not in her job description to lie in his bosom of a PCA.
No, but Connie, I think we can agree
Now we have a union.
that
She wasn't
personal
a member of a union.
boundaries were probably a little different back in the day than they are now, right?
Okay,
You know,
I'll go along with that.
yeah. I mean,
And
it
did she
is
have
it is fascinating. What did a PCA do in David's time? I mean, right?
Well, here we see
One of
it.
the jobs of the PCA was to climb into bed and make sure that the client was warm enough, right? We would never do that today, right? But who knows? Maybe that was the way it was back in the day.
Well, now we have blankets to keep people warm. Maybe they
Right.
didn't.
Electric ones.
But also, I wonder, did Abishag have a choice?
Well, that is
She
actually
was
really
brought. She was
interesting.
brought to the king. She
Yeah,
was sought
I
for.
think
She's
the reason
brought.
that's such an interesting question is because of the sequel, right? And we'll get to this in the next chapter, right? That Adoniah wants to marry her, right? And so that becomes a really explosive situation. All right. So Adoniah, the son of Haggit, exalted himself, right? So this is Absalom's brother saying, I will be king. And he prepared him chariots and horsemen and 50 men to run before him. So this is sounding very much like Absalom, right?
Sounding like what?
This is sounding very much like Avshalom.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And his father had not grieved him all his life, meaning basically, I think what that means is that David was a very, very indulgent father, and never really let Adoniah know that he shouldn't behave this way, right? Even though you would imagine that Adoniah would have seen what happened to Absalom and understand that that was probably not the way to go. And he conferred with Yoav, right? So now Yoav, the son of Zeruiah, who's always been David's loyal servant, and Abiathar, the priest, who has always been loyal to David, right? And they followed Adoniah to help him. But Sadok the priest, Benaiah the son of Jehoiada, Nathan the prophet, and Shimei. Interesting, Shimei, right? Shimei is the guy who insulted David so vociferously and pleaded for his life. And Ray, I don't remember who Ray is. And the mighty men that belonged to David, they were not with him, right? So there's already, you see, there's Adoniah has split off some of the most important guys, like Yoav and Abiathar, but he has not managed to get everything. And Adoniah slew sheep and oxen and fatlings by the stone of Toheleth, which is besides En Rogel. And he called all his brethren, the king's sons, and all the men of Judah, the king's servants. But Nathan the prophet, and Benaiah, and the mighty men, and Solomon his brother, very important, right? He called not. So he's going to do this sort of quasi not ordination. He's going to do this this ascension to the throne, right? But he's not. There's certain people he's omitting, right? Suggesting that those people will not be, probably because they would not countenance it, but also because they will have to be enemies afterwards. And Nathan spoke unto Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon, saying, Hast thou not heard that Adoniah, the son of Haggit, doth reign, and David our Lord knoweth it not? right? So Connie, this is where I think the Sonsino is saying, David has no idea what's going on. He's turned into Saul, right? Saul never knew what was happening. And so here David has become like this. And interesting, right, that Nathan doesn't go to David and say this, right? He goes to Bathsheba. And now therefore come, let me, I pray thee, give thee counsel that thou mayest save thine own life and the life of thy son Solomon. Right? And why is this about a matter of life and death for her and Solomon, right? Because presumably as a rival to the throne, one of the things Adoniah would do would be to murder Solomon and probably his mother as well. Go and get thee in unto King David and say unto him, didst not thou, my lord, O king, swear unto thy handmaid, saying, assuredly, Solomon thy son shall reign after me, and he shall sit on my throne. Why then doth Adoniah reign? Right, so very interesting. Who remembers David making this pledge to Bathsheba? Anybody? So I'll take the silence as that no one remembers, which is reasonable because it doesn't appear.
Exactly.
So the question is.
Oh, that was a trick question.
It was a trick question.
Oh.
She asked and he did not acquiesce.
Sorry?
She asked, but I don't think he acquiesced.
I don't even remember her saying anything about something.
No, this is all fiction.
Well, that is a great question, right? It raises the question, right? Is this Nathan and Bathsheba manipulating David?
That's what it sounded like to me.
Right. Or is this just a situation that actually did happen, right? But it just wasn't recorded in the version of the story that we have that's come down.
Well, if it were a real situation, it seems to me that Bathsheba could have gone to David on her own. She didn't need Nathan to come and tell her what to say.
Unless Bathsheba also did not know about Adoniah.
No, I don't buy it.
It's implied that Nathan is informing her that she
Right.
doesn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not. I don't have a dog in this race. So I'm not. I just think that it raises really interesting questions.
Yeah, that was a question I thought of when I was reading it.
Right. Exactly.
So Bathsheba is his favorite wife. Is that it?
Well, that's not clear either, right? That's not clear either that they're because Bathsheba just disappears, right after she gives birth to Solomon. I think what is more likely, right, is that who was it? Was it Connie was saying that he made the promise about Solomon? I think what it was is that God was very enamored of Solomon. I may be wrong about this, but the narrator, talks at length about Solomon and about how favored he was. So there is definitely a sense in the book of Samuel, right, that Solomon is somehow favored. But this specific pledge that Nathan is talking about in the Bathsheba, we don't witness that as part of the narration.
Is Solomon the replacement for the child that died, the first child?
Exactly.
And does Solomon, I don't remember, does he early on show signs of wisdom or something that makes him stand out?
I mean, I just think that I don't remember this was so long ago for us in the book, and I didn't think to look at it today to remind myself. But he definitely was. No other wife really, right, of David has this sort of attention paid to the birth of a child, right? And yes, it was a replacement for the child that was killed. And the Midrash suggests, right, that David made this pledge to Bathsheba about Solomon, sort of as a kind of consolation for the loss of their first child, because of course the Midrash doesn't want to countenance the idea that this idea came from Nathan rather than
So Bathsheba, she's the daughter of Eliam. Where is she from? Which, which,
It's not, I don't remember. Alter might have something about that, but
does
that's,
she have to be an Israelite in order to be the mother of the king?
no, not at all.
Why do they call Nathan the prophet? What is he? How is he the prophet?
It's so interesting that you asked that question, David. It's a great question, right? Natan Hanavi, right? That is how he's called throughout. And the reason I guess that he's called the prophet is because he's the one that when David abducts Bathsheba and arranges to have her husband killed, Nathan is the one who comes to him and says, you've sinned and you're in big trouble with God, right? That's how so Nathan's prophet status, but he just kind of pops up out of nowhere in these stories.
Everybody does.
But
And they come back after they're dead. So it's a little hard to follow.
yes.
Oh,
It's not
dear.
it's not easy, but Nathan just seems to, because what you'll sort of see is that there's some level of coherence vis-a-vis the prophets in later in the later narratives, where the prophets sort of if a prophet is introduced, the prophet is sort of there all the time. Nathan only seems to show up in. I mean, I may not be accurate about this, but my sense is that Nathan shows up when Bathsheba is around, which I think is very interesting. All right, so we should keep on going. All right, and they make up this deal, right, where in verse 14, behold, while thou yet talkest there with the king, I also will come in after thee and confirm thy words. Right, so it's going to be a 1-2 punch. And Bathsheba went in under the king into the chamber. Now the king was very old, and Abishag the Shunammite ministered under the king. Right, and so very interesting, right? So Abishag is there, right, but she's completely silent, and I don't think we hear more about her until
She
then.
never opens her mouth.
Right. I mean, it's not her job, right? And Bathsheba bowed and prostrated herself unto the king, and the king said, what wouldest thou? And she said unto my lord, this thou didst swear by Adonai thy God unto thy handmaid. Assuredly Solomon thy son shall reign after me, and he shall sit upon my throne. And now behold, Adonai reigneth, and thou, my lord the king, knowest it not. And he hath slain oxen and fatlings and sheep in abundance. Which is to say, he's offering sacrifices as though he is the king. And hath called all the sons of the king, and Abiathar the priest, and Joab the captain of the host. But Solomon, thy servant, hath he not called. And thou, my lord the king, the eyes of all Israel are upon thee, and thou shouldst tell them who shall sit on the throne of my lord the king after me. Otherwise it will come to pass when my lord the king shall sleep with his fathers, right? And note Alter points out, right, that she never says that the king is going to die, right? She says, when it's time for you to sleep with your fathers, I and my Solomon shall be counted offenders. All right. So Alter points out something very, very interesting, right, is that when there is dialogue in the Bible, there are never more than 2 interlocutors. Right? And so the question is, what happens to a third person? So we already had that question with Abishag, right? Bathsheba comes in, right? And the king was there and Abishag, the Shunammite, was there, right? It doesn't say that she left. It doesn't say that she stayed there. It just says that she was there. But we notice, right, that Abishag doesn't say anything. And then we'll see here, right, that when she was still talking to him, right, Nathan, the prophet, came in. And they told the king, behold, Nathan the prophet. Right? And when he was coming before the king, he bowed down before the king with his face to the ground. And Nathan said, my Lord, right? So what happened to Bathsheba? Right? And you'll notice that Bathsheba has disappeared. And what's not clear, right, is did she disappear, meaning she left the room? Or did she just disappear because the rules of the Bible are that only two people can be speaking to one another. You can't have a three-way dialogue. And so she's just sitting there quietly. I don't know the answer. Because obviously there are scenes with more than one person. Two people can be talking in front of a group. So it's not entirely clear. Okay, so Nathan said, my Lord, O king, hast thou said, Adonijah shall reign after me, and he shall sit upon my throne? For he is gone down this day, and hath slain oxen and fatlings and sheep in abundance, and hath called all the king's sons and the captains of the hosts. And Abiathar the priest, and behold, they eat and drink before him, and say, long live King Adonijah. Right, so very interesting, right? That Nathan is not saying, King David, you said that Solomon would be, right? Bathsheba said that, and Nathan is asking him this question. Right? He's putting,
Yeah, right.
but me, even me, thy servant, and Zadok the priest, and Benaiah the son of Yehoiada, and thy servant Solomon hath he not called. Is this thing done by my lord the king? And thou hast not declared to thy servant who would sit on the throne of my lord the king after him? And then King David answered and said, call me Bathsheba. And she came into the king's presence and stood before the king. Right, which suggests, right, there's one of two options, right? If she's gone and she's, now she comes into the room, right? So there's two options. The first option is the sort of classical scholarly option, right? That these are actually two different traditions, right? We have the tradition of Bathsheba talking to him, and then we have the tradition of Nathan talking, and this effort by the redactor, right, to make one story out of it. This calling Bathsheba into the room, right, is evidence of a sort of a clumsy job of stitching them together. Alter says, right, that no, actually, you really only have two people talking to each other at the same time, and so when Nathan arrived, Bathsheba withdrew, even though the text doesn't say that. And so David is saying, call me Bathsheba. The reason he's saying that is because she has gone away and he wants her to come. All right. So I'm not going to say that one is right and the other is wrong. I tend in these things to just trust Alter, but don't trust me. And he came into the king's presence and stood before the king. And the king swore and said, as the Lord liveth, who hath redeemed my soul out of all adversity? Verily, as I swore unto thee by the Lord, the King of Israel, saying, right? So just to point out, right, that Nathan goes to Bathsheba and says, David promised to make Solomon the king. Bathsheba goes to David and ups it and says, you swore by the Lord, right? Meaning that if you don't do this, you will be held,
Forsworn.
right?
You will be forsworn.
Right? And then God, and then David, ups it one more, right? Verily, as I swore unto thee by the Lord, right? So he is now taking Bathsheba's version, right? And saying, assuredly, Solomon, my son, shall reign after me, and he shall sit upon my throne in my stead. Tachti, right? I'll show you the tachti in Hebrew. Vehu yoshev al kisi tachti, instead of me.
Where's
Right? Not that Solomon will replace, will come after me, right? But that he will actually, right now, he will become king, at least co-regent with me, right? Vehu yoshev al kisei tachti.
Tachat.
I'm sorry?
Tachat is under.
Under, exactly, under me.
Tachti is like under me.
Under me, or it also means instead of me,
Ah,
right? Ki ken ese hayom hazeh, and thus I will do this very day, right? So David, even if he is slightly addled, Connie, as Sansino suggests, right? Even if Phyllis, this idea was not originally his and came from Nathan and Bathsheba, right? He is aware enough of what he's doing to understand that he cannot simply say that when I die, Solomon will be king, right? He understands that if Solomon will be king after he dies, Solomon needs to be king now, like right now.
Interesting. Yeah.
And which I find just completely fascinating, right? And then bowed Bathsheba with her face to the earth and prostrated herself to the king and said, let my king, my lord, King David, live forever. And obviously, everybody knows that David is not living forever. David is not living even another year, right? But
he lives forever in a way, metaphorically or
exactly.
or
Well, maybe
historically or
I mean, I
Well,
think,
he lives in the memory of his people.
yes.
right. We can see it that way, right?
It's kind of formulaic. kind
It's
of.
like viva so and so.
Exactly. But I do think also that Bathsheba is laying it on really thick, and B, right, that Bathsheba feels that that David will live on in Solomon, right? So, and the king David said, call me Tzadok the priest and Nathan the prophet, right? So here we have, right, call me Nathan, right? Presumably Nathan is sitting right there. But again, we have this sort of, we have this rhetoric, right? That if a person is talking to someone else,
Could it be that when the person who talks comes up right next to the king, and the other person steps, somewhat back,
right,
and with, so they're not really right with hearing distance.
right? I mean, that could very well be, right? That even if the person who was talking to the king moves behind the person who is now talking to the king, right? It might be that the king is going to say, please.
Yeah, it's possible.
Absolutely. All right. So they came before the king, and the king said unto them, hold on, sorry guys. Take with you the servants of your Lord, and cause Solomon my son to ride upon mine own mule, and bring him down to Gihon, right? So Gihon, right? So if David is going to put Solomon on his animal, right, then clearly that indicates that Solomon has replaced him. And let Tzadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anoint him there, king over Israel. And notice, right, who anoints the king? Right, the priest and the prophet. The priest and prophet together, right? So this is like getting Aaron and Moses to anoint a king, right? So that the two sort of great lines of connection to God, right? The priestly line and the prophetic line, right? Solomon has both of them, right? Whereas Adoniah, right, only had the priest Abiathar and the military ruler, right? The military leader Yoav, right? So that is not as strong as the priest and the prophet. And blow ye with the horn, right, on the shofar, blow the shofar, and long live King Solomon, right? When we crown the king, a coronation of the king, right, like on Rosh Hashanah every year, we blow the shofar. Then he shall come up after him, and he shall come and sit upon my throne, for he shall be my king, and he shall be king in my stead, and I have appointed him to be prince over Israel and over Judah. And then Benaiah says, Amen, so say the Lord, the God of my Lord the king. Right? So if the king says it, then God also says it. As the Lord hath been with my Lord the king, even so be he with Solomon, and make his throne greater than the throne of my Lord King David. Right? So this might be seen as a variation on what Bathsheba said, right? Is that the living forever, right? You live forever through your successors.
Can I ask an irrelevant question?
Sure.
My favorite kind.
Is it it's strange to me that the Jews didn't have camels, but the king used a donkey. And what it suggests is that the Jews were very poor.
I mean, it could be, right? It could be. I actually been wondering about this, right? Because in the book of Judges, right, the piece that we've been reading right now about the Midianites and the fight between Gideon and the Midianites, right? The narrator makes a huge deal of the fact that the Midianites have camels.
Yeah, I mean, it's so strange.
It is strange. So the question really, for me, would be, is there some sort of,
Some sort of prohibition against camels?
I doubt that it's a prohibition, but even today, right? When you see a camel in Israel, it's associated with the Bedouins. It's not associated with the people who live in settlements.
Right.
Well, I really don't know, but I do find it really interesting, right? That this, that the royal animal is a mule. It's not a donkey. It's a mule.
It's a poor person's animal to us.
Yeah, right.
It is, but I think for them it's not.
Yeah.
So it was like a Model T. I mean, no one had a nicer car than a Model T, right? Everyone had the same car. It was later, right, that people had choices. I mean, I don't know. It's a really good question, Phyllis. It would be worth investigating.
Those are the vehicles they would give an advantage. If you have the better vehicle, it gives you a greater advantage.
Right.
Maybe the Israelites, they don't have vast distances to travel the way the Arabs do with their camels that can live in the desert. That they're the only way to get across the desert is with a camel.
Right. I mean, and I also think think of a Subaru versus a versus a Mercedes, right? There, a camel probably took a lot more resources to maintain.
But they can go more miles per gallon. You can't go far with any other animal. No, seriously, because of their ability to be in the desert they can conserve water.
Right.
So you don't need them unless you have a vast distance, maybe.
Exactly. If you don't need them, then why would you bother with them? Exactly. Yeah. Because camels are also, I mean, from my very limited experience of camels, they're also not easy to deal with.
Well,
it suggests either that the Jews were too poor, and or they were not traders.
Right. I think that's probably fair also, is that they didn't do, they're more sedentary.
Yeah,
They're not going long distances.
Right.
right.
All right, so Tzadok the priest and Nathan the prophet and Benaiah the son of Yehudiah and the Cherethites and the Pelethites, these are all of David's loyal strongmen, went down and caused Solomon to ride upon King David's mule and brought him to Gihon. And Tzadok the priest took the horn of oil out of the tent and anointed Solomon, and they blew the ram's horn. And all the people said, "Long live King Solomon." And all the people came up after him, and the people piped with pipes and rejoiced with great joy, so that the earth rent with the sound of them, right? So you can just sort of imagine this huge inauguration sort of deal, right? And Adoniah and all the guests that were with him heard it, as they had made an end of Eden. And when Yoav heard the sound of the horn, he said, "Wherefore is this noise of the city being in an uproar?" Right? Yoav, Adoniah, and the guests hear the uproar of the people, right? But Yoav, the military guy, this is Alter's point, right? Hears the sound of the horn, right? So he knows something is really up. While he yet spoke, behold, Yonatan. Very interesting, right? That this is Yonatan, which was the son of Saul. This Yonatan is the son of Abiathar, the priest came. And Adoniah said, "Come in, for thou art a worthy man, and bring good tidings." And Jonathan answered and said to Adoniah, "Verily our Lord King David hath made Solomon. And the king hath sent with him Tzadok the priest." And so he just repeats that all this happened, right? And they are come up from thence rejoicing, so that the city is in an uproar. This is the noise that ye have heard. And also Solomon sitteth on the throne of the kingdom, right? Al kisei hamalucha, right? He sits on the throne of kingship. Right? And moreover, the king's servant came to bless our Lord King David, saying, "God make the name of Solomon better than thy name, and make his throne greater than thy throne." And the king bowed down upon the bed. And thus said the king, "Blessed be the Lord, the God of Israel, who hath given one to sit on my throne this day, mine eyes even seeing it." Right? He's laying it on really, really thick. I mean, obviously, Yonatan, it's not clear what Yonatan's take on this is, but the narrator is really laying it on thick. And all the guests of Adoniah were afraid, and they rose up, and everyone went. They all disappeared. And Adoniah feared because of Solomon, and he arose and went and caught hold of the horns of the altar. Right, this is where you would go. You would go into the tent of meeting, and this was a place of sanctuary. Right, no one was allowed to kill you there. And it was told Solomon, saying, "Behold, Adoniah feareth you. For lo, he hath laid hold on the horns of the altar, saying, Let King Solomon swear unto me, first of all, that he will not slay his servant with his sword." And Solomon said, "If he show himself a worthy man, there shall not be a hair of him fall to the earth. But if wickedness be found in him, he shall die." Right? Which is which is obviously what's the word? A foreshadowing of what's going to happen.
But is that true that Adoniah was not going to be killed? There was a
Wait,
chance. Why
wait.
would he not be killed?
Well, if he shows himself to be a worthy man. I mean, this is very interesting, actually. What we see with Solomon, and we'll see this in the next chapter, right? What we see with Solomon is that he in at least the case of Shimei and in the case of Adoniah, right? He does not immediately act like a king who is solely focused on what's the word I'm looking for?
Vengeance?
Not vengeance, but sort of pulling together his power. I can't think of the word right off the top of my head, but when you think of a king wants to sort of is to kill all of his potential rivals, right? And all of the people but Solomon doesn't do that. He says, you would think if someone, pretended to be king and then you became king, right? What would you do to that guy? You'd kill him, right? I mean, if you were a king like this, right? Solomon does not. Right? Solomon says, let's see how he does, right? Let's see how he behaved, and then we'll see, right? And so they brought him down from the altar, and he came and prostrated himself before King Solomon, and Solomon said unto him, go to thy house, right? Very interesting. He says the same thing to Shimei, right? Go to your house and stay there, right? Sort of house arrest seems to be the order of the day. All right, it's 8:10. I'm going to give you all a choice. Actually, I think I'm not going to give you a choice because I have to. There's a couple other things I need to deal with tonight. So I think we should probably look at this last chapter. We will look at it next week before we discuss the article in the New Yorker.
Okay. All right.
All right. So thank you, everybody. Thanks for your patience tonight. We have a bit of complications with all of the mistakes in the program bulletin, but hopefully next week those will be resolved and we'll be in good shape.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.